So today we have Dr. Sani Abdul Rahman, who's a economist and associate professor at the Institute for Agricultural Research at Ahmadu Bello University in Zaria, Nigeria. His research and teaching expertise includes socioeconomics, agricultural productivity, value chains, food security, gender inclusion, and social standards. Today, he'll show how gender dynamics and sociocultural norms affect farmers' participation and decision-making in tricot trials across 5 savanna states in Nigeria, where over 900 farmers evaluated improved groundnut, sorghum, and pearl millet varieties. The study revealed that women's involvement is constrained by gaps in education, extension access, and cooperative membership, underscoring the need for gender-responsive extension, inclusive trial design, and community engagement to foster equitable participation and technology adoption. So without further ado, I'd like to ask Dr. Sani to now share his screen and start his presentation. You can go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Rachel, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sani Abdurrahman from Institute for Agricultural Research, Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, and I'm here today to present one of these seminar series on issue of gender dynamics and looking at farmer decision-making and participation in tricot trials in Nigeria. Yeah, by way of introduction, gender dynamics and sociocultural factors play a very crucial role in agricultural practices and adoption making. And it also influences the adoption of technologies necessary for productivity and food security. Although women constitute a substantial proportion of agricultural workforce, particularly in rural areas in Nigeria, but they face persistent structural barriers that limit their own access to resources, and at the same time, essential services, leadership, and decision-making. The participatory innovation platforms such as tricot has important opportunity and sustainable agricultural development platform. However, gender pattern of this participation and leadership within this particular platform remain insufficient employ. So this particular platform has actually have a lot of benefits. It actually have reduced some of those tasks for participants, and not just reducing tasks for participants, it also encouraged the contribution and collaboration between them and share resources between different scholars. And at the same time, it also have supported the issue of friendly digital tools, especially the ODK and the ClimeHub for quick analysis. And at the same time, it also gives a robust data. Then, some of these social cultural practices are actually deep roots, especially in terms of norm, institutional constraint that restricted women mobility, their voices, engagement in agricultural innovation, and thereby reducing their effectiveness, especially in terms of participatory approach. Addressing this inequality is essential, not only for social justice, but also for improving the efficiency and sustainability of agricultural development. So this particular study actually seeks to identify some of those sociocultural and institutional factors shaping women participation in tricot trials, and also generate evidence-based recommendation for gender-responsive agricultural policies and innovation. The 1,000 Farm Catalytic Small Grant Project unites 3 different research institutes, which are the NAS partners: the Center for Dryland Agriculture from BUK, Bayero University, Kano, then the Institute for Agricultural Research, Zaria, which is IR, and the Lecture Research Institute, which is lectured in Maiduguri, that is Borno State. They actually mark their resources and expertise to see that this particular project has been actually identified and also taken care of. Then the objectives of the study is to actually identify some of those socio-economic characteristics that the farmers are actually facing in participating in tricot trial, especially looking at it from the angle of their formal education, their age, their marital status, their extension trials, and tricot experience, to see how does this actually influence their role in participation in tricot trial. To also look at the gender disparity or difference in decision making, especially looking at control of exchange of inputs, control of sales, and at the same time the control of production. whether the household man or woman who actually control some of those resources. The next one is to look at the factors influencing the farmers' decision-making to participate in tricot trials, and also look at gender mainstreaming, especially from their attitudinal perspectives and their engagement in terms of a tricot trial. The materials and methods. The study covers 5 particular states in 3 different agroecological zones, comprises both Sahel, Sudan, and Guinea Savannah in Nigeria. And these 5 states comprise of Kano, Bauchi, Jigawa, Katsina, and Yobe states. These states are characterized by semi-arid condition, and the result is a hub for dryland crops such as groundnut, pear millets, sorghum, and others suitable for tricot trials. So agriculture is actually dominated by smallholder farmers operating under this particular irregular rainfalls and high temperature, which heighten the importance of some of those drought resistance, early maturing variety, and high yielding variety in selection. So while both men and women participate in this farming, women are largely engaged in post-harvest activities with limited decision-making roles. Then the presence of these urban centers, market, and good network routes support this trial implementation and farmers' engagements, showing the need for gender inclusiveness, participatory, and varietal selection. Then the sampling procedure. The study adopted a multi-study sampling procedure, combining both random and purposive selection, that also stratifies some of those particular techniques to ensure a representativeness across this agroecological zone. So, as I've mentioned earlier, 5 states are involved: Kano, Jigawa, Katsina, Bauchi, and Yobe states. These were randomly selected in the first stage so that it will be able to give the relevance to the target crops in those particular regions. Then subsequently, 30 farming community comprises 6 per state who are purposely selected in collaboration with the Agricultural Development Project initiatives to actually focus on the productivity and secure areas for this particular trial. Then field agents and farmers were also randomly chosen, and based on their own farming experience prior to participation, looking at the issue of gender balance, and total 900 farmers who were actually sampled evenly, stratified across these particular crops to ensure robustness statistical analysis and also broaden the applicability of these particular findings. These are the econometric models used to analyze some of those particular research based on the objectives we have. Descriptive statistics was employed. Then the logistic regression analysis was also employed. Then the exploratory factor analysis was also employed to actually look at how does this gender mainstreaming influence the participation in terms of this research. Then results and discussion. The first one is to look at the gender leaderships and decision-making in tricot trials. And these are categories of the domain that we have. Who controls the exchange of inputs? Who controls the sales of some of the products? Who controls the production? Because it's also very important in terms of decision-making and in terms of participatory approach. Then the findings reveal that there are pronounced gender disparity, especially in terms of farm-level decision-making. Looking at the issue of result and discussion, the first table I have here is to look at the gender difference in terms of decision-making and leadership in tricot trials. And we have about 4 different domains: who controls the exchange of inputs, who controls the sales of produce, and who also control the production decision and the leadership role in tricot trials. Then this was stratified based on gender, looking at from the male perspective and the female folk to see who actually controls this decision. And I said the findings reveal that there is pronounced gender disparity, especially in terms of farm-level decision-making within the tricot trials. Then men overwhelmingly dominated the control of input exchange, resulting about 67.6%, the produce sales 72.4%, and the production decision about 65.7%. This actually reflecting in transgender stratification in access to resource and authority. Although inevitable shares of women reported sole control in specific domain often lead to small plots and low-value crops. So the decision-making power remained constrained, then frequently mediated by husbands or other household actors. This inequality limited women agencies, reduced their own capacity to adopt innovation, and also weakened their effective participation, especially in tricot trials. But in contrast, if you look at the leadership role, especially in control, it shows that a narrow gender gap is being observed, with women slightly outperforming about men, about 4%, 4.1% difference, suggesting that inclusive institutional design can also create opportunity for change. Then, in overall, we can also say that there is gender-responsive approach that will also strengthen the women to control their resources if the issue of inclusivity is being taken into consideration. Then, gender mainstreaming and socio-cultural limitation in tricot trials. Then we actually have 4 different gender dimensions: the issue of the norms, the customs, the belief, and the code of behavior. And we also try to see what positive attitude did they actually have towards a tricot trial and their actual participation level in tricot trial. Then, looking at the results presented in this particular table, based on gender, being male and female folk, you will discover that the sociocultural barriers, especially restrictive norms, traditional custom, limited beliefs, and behavioral code, disproportionately constrained women, limited mobility, decision making, and achieve engagement. Women actually reported restrictive norms about 53%, behavioral code about 56%, and this affects by limited beliefs compared to 18 to 25% within men. So these can actually say that women face a lot of challenges, especially in terms of access to land, in terms of leadership, in terms of information, resulting in low positive attitude towards tricot trial. So these constraints are deeply embedded, especially in terms of local culture, because a lot of local norms are being propagated within this particular area, especially the issue of pruda, where women are also restricted in the household to take care of domestic use. Then institutional structure is also another barrier. They're reducing women's capacity, especially to influence their own selection and benefit from participatory innovation. So these findings also show that there is need for gender-sensitive approach that not only provide access to input, they also address the issue of sociocultural norms and institutional barriers to reduce some of those issues, especially in tricot trial. Then the next table look at the factors influencing farmers' decision in to participate in tricot trial, and logistic regression analysis was used to see what variables actually influence their decision to participate in a trial or not to participate in that particular trial. Then formal education strongly increased participation for both men and women, especially if you look at the coefficient of men, you have almost 85%, and the coefficient of women too is also very high. So these actually enhance confidence, experience, and technology adoption with a more pronounced effect for women. Women has more propensity in terms of having formal education to participate in the trial than men. And young men are also more likely to participate, while the age is insignificant for women, highlighting the overriding influence of social cultural norms. And then looking at the farming experience, which is also very significant, access to extension services, cooperative membership, tricot awareness, and mobile phone ownership possibly influence their participation, particularly for women who benefit from this particular institutional support. Farm size also have effects, especially in terms of involvement, then also less significant for women. Then this indicates that from the baseline, there's emphasis in terms of structural advantage for women. Then we will try to also look at the effect of gender mainstreaming, which are the norm, custom, belief, and code of behavior, and how does this actually affect farmers' attitude and participation in tricot trial. Before arriving using factors, factor analysis, explanatory factor analysis, the first thing we need to do is to get the perceptions of all these particular respondents, both men and women, to put them into a scale, to actually have a dimension, to have principal component analysis, to see each of these particular analysis, to see what behavior and how did they actually influence some of these key issues in terms of attitude and participation in tricot trial. Then the norms and belief actually collapse into PC1, that is principal component 1. The custom and expectation are also collapsed into principal component 2. And the behavioral restriction is also in principal component 3. Then some essential variables like extension, contact, and education are also part of the variable to check how does it actually affect farmers' attitude and also in terms of their participation in this trial. So the results in this table actually highlighted strong gender influence, especially in tricot participation. So if you look at the PC1, then the PC2 and the PC3, they are all negative affected participation, with women experiencing larger impact than men. This reflects a entral socio-cultural and customary barrier. So in overall, you can say this finding actually showed that socio-cultural norms and behavioral restrictions actually strongly limited women engagement in cultural trials, while education and also extension contacts serve as a critical enabler, suggesting that targeted intervention can also improve gender inclusivity and also improve in terms of tricot trials. Yes, in conclusion, the tricot farm experiment in Nigeria, for instance, also have a significant gender gap in assessing resources, decision space, and also participation in tricot trial. Even with equal interest and ability, women farmers also face a lot of especially constrained by religion obligations, norms, sociocultural limited their own leaderships, monetary and autonomy. And this structural commitment leads to limited access to some of those key essential inputs like education, extension services, cooperative membership, input and output behavior. Then I would like to also acknowledge Alliance for Biodiversity and CIAT, then the CDA, the IAR, and Lake Chad Research Institute for this particular answer. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's a fantastic overview of the constraints, especially that women are facing in participating in tricot trials in Nigeria. I'll go straight to the couple of questions that have been put into the chat. So let's start with one from Bello, who asks, what is the proportion of male and female participants selected in the study?
Can I respond to the question?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, considering the fact that the northern Nigeria, where this particular research is being implemented, there is a lot of cultural sensitivity, where most of the women are not allowed to engage in strenuous activity, especially in the production. But processing, yes, a lot of them are engaged in processing and also some aspect of marketing. But in terms of production, they look at some of this particular production as something tedious that their women cannot actually engage based on their own religious belief. And as a result of that, we try to see how we can actually capture women in this particular study, considering the 25% affirmation by World Bank. And the population of women here actually cut across 25% from the entire population. So that was the first thing we did in terms of trying to see, even in terms of leadership, to cut across so that they could also have a voice in this particular study. Thank you.
Bella, would you like to say anything about that? Feel free to unmute if you'd like to respond. Okay, thank you very much. Let me go to a hand and then we'll go back to a question in the chat. So I see that Shahu has his hand raised. You could go ahead and ask your question, please.
It's okay. Yeah. Good day where I am in Nigeria. There is a very good presentation, and I follow with keen interest because we're also trying to make some measured decision on tricot using soybeans. But the question that quickly came to my mind is, if we're looking at gender mainstreaming, and we narrow it down to Kano, Jigawa, the participation of women in those states may not give us completely what we are looking for. But if we have picked those states and then also work with South, where they have different religious background, that have influences on women, I think we'll have better results and a template for Nigeria. Just as we're trying to do in soybeans, we have in the north, we have in the south, we have across these different places. Because in the far north, there's a kind of religions that also restrict women in most of this participation also. That's my thinking. Thank you.
Thank you, Shahu. Would you like to say anything about that, Dr. Sani?
Yes, Rachel, can I respond to this?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. If you actually look at the study area and the nature of the crops grown in those areas, I think I laid some emphasis that 5 states were actually involved: the Bauchi, Kano, Jigawa, Katsina, Yobe, and Borno states. These were actually involved in terms of the experiment. And I said, if you look at the nature of this particular crop, these are crops that with minimal rainfall and high temperature, they can actually thrive in those areas. They are dry land crops areas. And the issue of early maturity, high yielding, variety selections, and also drought tolerance is also a factor that we use in trying to see that this area have actually been chosen for this particular crop. You agree with me that if we have this particular production, especially pear millets in the south, it may not do well because they require a minimal rainfall, where we have a very high rainfall in the south. And that is why the choice of expanding this particular grants or research cutting across both the north and the south does not actually come into being, because the issue, if you look at this issue of sorghum and pear millets, are not being produced in the southern part of Nigeria. It is only being produced in the northern part of Nigeria because the soil condition, the weather condition actually favors this production. And I said is the hub of some of this production in this particular area. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's move on to the next question. Adane Tufa in the chat asked if you would please define control. This was earlier on in your presentation, possibly in one of your first tables. I'm not sure where control is. Yeah. Adani, would you like to specify exactly where that was? You can unmute.
Okay.
Yes,
Respond?
very much. I really wanted to know what he really looked at when you say control. There is a production control, decision, sales, and so on and so on. What does it mean? Is it decision making? Is it control of the sale or the produce itself, or what does it mean? Is it like woman cannot do anything if the man doesn't allow her, or what is it? What that exactly mean? And the other thing, maybe because I have another meeting, I have to get out, and I'm wondering whether you used random sampling, because most often when we engage tricot participants, we go to those farmers who are willing and who can really willing to host, and also who are really with some experience and so on. And is it like for you randomly selected and the tricot hosting farmers, or just you approach those farmers who are willing to host the tricot? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can I respond?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you very much. When we talk about the issue of control of exchange of inputs, we're actually looking at it from the perspective of decision making. Who take the decision? Is it the husband? Is it men? Or is it women? For example, if in terms of the production, we want to purchase input like fertilizer, we want to purchase input like seed, who take decision to purchase this particular variety? And what kind of variety did they take decision? So that's what you try to see. Is it a man that take the decision in terms of what kind of input are we going to purchase, or is it a woman, or is it a joint decision between both of them? So that's what you're actually trying to see here. So the control here is who take the decision. Then, and in terms of whether we actually use random sampling in selecting these particular respondents, ab initio, I said we use a multi-stage sampling design that combines both random and purposive stratified techniques. And I said, the first thing we try to do is to see that we randomize even the states and the community where we actually choose for this particular study. And we also said we purposely choose only 30 farming community per state. And the issue of gender, we try to see that since the culture and the norms and the code of behavior within that particular environment also significantly influence the decision on who participates in terms of trials, we try to see that 25% affirmation is achieved, where we purposefully choose some of these women to participate. But we allow everybody randomly to show an interest. But any woman who shows an interest, automatically we choose them as part of the respondent because they have the interest and they are willing to participate in this particular project. So a combination of both random sampling and stratified sampling and also purposive sampling was used in selection of this respondent. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I've got a question from Jida Umar, and I saw that his hand was raised, but now it's gone. So I'll just go ahead and read the question out. You showed that non-inclusion of women restricted them even in access to education. Can you please explain?
Okay. Well, I think it's a hidden truth that from the northern part of Nigeria, there's a lot of challenge, especially in bringing women into education. And the issue of girls out of school is high in the northern part of Nigeria compared to the southern part of Nigeria. So this is actually a challenge, and where the government and everybody, all the stakeholders, hands are on deck to see that most of the out of school children can now return to the school. Yes, in terms of education, you see that even educational level also influence their decision in participating in this trial. Majority of the women also have some level of education that actually prompts them to actually participate in these particular trials. So yes, we are not doubting the fact that there's a problem, and some of this problem is cultural, and that is why we're actually advocating that some of these barriers should actually be broken so that we'll be able to see a lot of women coming out to participate in this trial. And as I've also mentioned earlier, that based on their own belief, women are not expected to do some of those strenuous activities, especially in terms of production that commands a lot of labor intensive. So what they do is to engage them in terms of processing, and some of them are engaged in terms of marketing. I think this is one of the reasons why the educational distance is actually low among women and others. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's clear. Moving on to the next question from Stefan Angadubo. He asked, do attitude and participation mean the same thing in quote unquote analyzing the effect of gender, mainstreaming on farmers' attitude and participation? These seem to be considered as a single dependent variable. So attitude and participation.
Okay, I'm trying to. Yeah. Okay, positive attitude towards tricot. Are we talking about gender mainstreaming and socio-cultural limitations?
I think, Stefan, do you want to unmute and clarify, if you can?
No, if Dr. Sani could go to the slide which has a PCA analysis.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you indicate, just hold it there for the PCA.
There, yeah.
Yeah, so if you say effect of gender mainstreaming on farmer attitudes and participation, it will mean that the independent variables are regressed on attitude and participation, and the result shows one thing. So does, in this sense, attitude and participation mean the same thing, or there's some result which is missing?
I got you correctly. Can I respond?
Please.
Okay, thank you. Before we arrive at this particular table, there are a series of analyses we actually run. The first one is to run dimensional reduction analysis to see we actually have the extraction for which of these particular components and principal component analysis, whether PC1 and 2, that is actually effective for us to be able to use in the further analysis. Then the first thing we did in terms of attitude and the participation, they are not actually the same. Farmer's attitude can actually, a farmer can actually participate in a particular trial, but his or her attitude towards implementation of that particular trial differs. So we actually have a second table, which is not included here, that is talking about participation differently. What you're having here is their own gender mainstreaming in terms of their own participation. So I think it's two tables, though I actually presented one that has to do with their attitude, and that of participation is actually missing from this particular presentation. I'm trying to actually manage 20 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Stefan, do you want to ask your second question that you put in the chat while you're there?
Okay, so before even I go there, through you, Chair, I think if Dr. Sani could go a step behind, just one more step behind. There. Yeah. These are like societal factors, kind of. I would love to know if somebody supported this work with some bit of qualitative studies, which will provide more informative on some of these aspects, things like restrictive norms, traditional customs, limiting beliefs. Is there any backup with quantitative study? I mean, qualitative.
Yes, exactly. We actually use KI, key informant interview, and at the same time, focus group discussion. The data we have actually collected in two different phases. The first one is to actually do a pilot test to see what kind of social norms or gender mainstreaming activities that is actually going on there. And what are the socio-cultural activities within this particular state? That was the first one. Then when the data was actually collected along the trials, we also have the KII interview, key informant interview, and also have focus group discussion with few respondents to actually get some of this information. Yes, it was actually carried out. We carried out KII and FGD.
Okay. Is this going to be part of this paper, or it's like a different?
Yes, in fact, is part of the paper. In fact, we actually presented one paper from this particular work in one international conference, and that particular paper does not carry the issue of the KI, but the other paper we have sent out for KI journal, I think that one actually contained the issue of the KII and FGD results. But at the end of the day, I think I can attach it to this particular slide so that I can share.
All right, thanks. Then regarding that, based on Rachel's indication, you said positive attitude towards tricot. That seems to be a composite description. What describes a positive attitude?
Okay. As I've said earlier on, based on the KII and FGD study we have conducted prior to when we started the real implementation of these particular studies, it was obvious that majority of women in those particular areas does not actually have they don't participate in actually production, except processing and more of marketing. And the men, some of them, once they see an intervention, they believe it's a free money or something they can actually get free and go. So the first thing we need to see is if you've actually participated in some of those trials before now, and other people who have not participated, what is their aspiration? What is their hope? What is their attitude towards participating in this tricot trial? Because the nature of the tricot trial is we only provide seed, which is the input, then the labor and other input requirements are being provided by the farmers. Because we want to see that this particular research is being conducted on centered on farmers' condition. And that is why these particular variables is important to see what is their attitude towards participating in a tricot trial. I don't know if I have responded to this question.
I think the aspect of positive attitude is very critical for you to continue with a set of farmers, or also for people who are implementers. So if you come up with the parameters that really describe what is positive attitude and what
Okay.
is negative attitude in your research, it will help a lot of folks in this seminar.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Mhm. Great, thank you very much for your questions. So there's a comment from Okoye Benjamin in the chat. It's not a question, it's a comment. He said that he'll be sharing with you a methodology to test for significant differences between male and female respondents as regard frequency responses most especially. So be on the lookout for that. And then I have another last question in the chat from Futsho Tenzin. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Thank you for the presentation. Tricot will be used for the first time in Bhutan to identify farmer-preferred varieties for 5 crops. Could you briefly explain how to go about it? That's a big question. But maybe you can give him a bit of advice on how.
Materials. Exactly. Yeah. Give him some materials to go through it, especially the procedure and protocols we use in implementing this particular research. I can share with the person so I can just go through them.
Okay, yeah, and I can put your email in the chat there again for people to contact you. But before I do that, let me just ask if there are any other questions. Stefan, is that an old hand I see, or do you have another question?
No, it's in regard to this last request of implementing tricot with 5 crops. And so this is like more of the multi-crop approach. If that particular person also is interested, I can give some guidance.
Great. Could you just pop your email in the chat there for him, Stefan? That would help me
Okay.
out. And I'll also put Dr. Sani's email in there too. Any other questions from the floor? Just please raise your virtual hand if you'd like to ask a question. Stefan, is that still your old hand or is it another one?
No, it's the old one, sorry.
Okay, it's all right. I've just put Dr. Sani's email in the chat. And I think Stefan's going to put his in there too, if anyone has questions for him. Any other questions or comments? I see that Okoye has attached a PDF into the chat. Okoye, would you like to just unmute and briefly tell us what you've shared so that it might be useful to other people as well?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I noticed Abdul did quite a lot of descriptives that has to do with responses between the male and female, especially the frequencies. So usually, as a socioeconomist, I myself try to do a lot of quantitative analysis to bring out significant differences, if there are any, between two things or more than two things. So I have been using a particular model more 2006. I attached that model there, where you can quantitatively see if there are any significant differences from the frequency responses of the male and females. Frequency because the number of persons that indicate a particular observation, male and female, you can use that model to say there are significant differences or there are not, or what the men and the women are saying are the same. So I've just attached the model there. I actually use that model in my PhD work. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for sharing that. So that's a PDF in the chat. If anybody wants to just click on that and download it, they can see what he's talking about. I have a question now from Miriam Daoud. Thank you for the nice presentation. Did you find any difference in farmers' cultural behavior toward tricot trial versus on farm trials? Dr. Sani?
Yeah, hello. You're asking about the difference between those participating in trials and non-trials?
Difference in farmers' behavior toward tricot versus on-farm, so non-tricot, I think.
No, in this research, we didn't consider those that didn't participate in the tricot trials. So it's mainly for the farmer that participated in the tricot trials. So, and what we look at it is the gender dimension within those that participated in the trials, between male, youth, and female. That's what we actually did.
Mm-hmm.
I know what she's asking is that we have another paper where we actually look at on-farm trial and tricot trials. So can you also share that paper with her for us to have everything or follow up that particular trial?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you have anything to share, you can put it into the chat, any papers or anything.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
sure.
Any further questions or comments? It's been a nice discussion today. I appreciate your participation. Okay. Well, if you have any burning questions after the webinar, you can ask Dr. Sani directly with the email address is there in the chat. Or Stefan also has put his email there. So
Okay.
Thank you very much for that. Oh, I've got one more. Oh, Marcia just says thank you. Sani and Rachel, you're welcome.
Okay.
Okay, well, that was really interesting. Thanks for sharing your research with us, and we look forward to reading the paper when it comes out. If you can share that on the community website, we would appreciate that. So I'll just ask you to unshare your screen, and then I can just close the webinar, please. Okay, so once again, these are our online resources for 1,000 Farms, and you can find a lot of information about tricot, how to carry out tricot trials on the website, and then also you can learn a lot about what people have done by joining the Community of Practice website, that second address there, and you can see this webinar plus all the previous and future ones. So we'll be back in a couple more weeks with another webinar. But thank you again to Dr. Sani Abdulrahman for presenting and sharing his experience with us today. And thank you to all of you for participating. And I wish you a very good day.